One miracle after another has occurred, which will add, and one has occurred. We're going to share. That adds to Israel's economic strength and influence, and also very likely to be a catalyst to do exactly as our program emphasizes today, advance prophecy. And that miracle is the discovery of oil in Israel, and not just any oil, but massive deposits of oil that when you take and you add it to the previously discovered natural gas deposits, literally makes Israel, I'm going to say, perhaps the envy of the world. And Jimmy, this is a remarkable thing. You've been talking about it. I want you to update our listeners now as to what God is doing to magnify Israel and not only draw the nations to the Middle East by his divine power, but he's seeming to do it through natural events like he always does. And perhaps this discovery, through the greed and the desire for control of other nations, might just bring them to do something that Scripture tells us about. What's happening, Jimmy?
It's unbelievable, Sam. I cannot believe I'm even reporting this because we've talked about it. As you said, prophecy teachers have said that Israel will discover oil. They said it was over here, over there, on the coast, whatever. But Israel, as of today, has discovered shale oil, which is thought to be about 250 billion, that's a B, 250 billion barrels of oil. Now that's, if you're going to try to compare, that would be the same amount of oil Saudi Arabia has in their supply. And remember, it was shale oil that is what made the United States energy independent. This is a major oil find in the Middle East, and what's so amazing about it, God has come through again. It's an amazing major oil find in the state of Israel itself.
I want to follow up with this because I don't know if you know this or not. If you can, I'd like to know. You said that the natural gas deposits are just off the coast of Israel because they don't contact the Mediterranean on a large expanse, but just enough that it belongs to Israel. Where are these shale fields? Do you know where they were found, what portion of Israel that they were located in?
When you're talking about the state of Israel, basically we're talking about the entire state of Israel. There's a lot of this oil that they believe is in the Negev desert. And you know, the Negev desert has not been developed. David Ben-Gurion, who was the first prime minister of Israel, moved down into the Negev desert. That would be the southern part of Israel from Jerusalem south all the way down to the Red Sea. And in fact, that's where the children of Israel wandered during the 40 years of wandering in the wilderness. That's where they came across the Red Sea up there to the north. They came into what is the Negev desert today. They wandered all of that area. You can look at it. You can read the scripture and see that is the case. Now, isn't that just like the Lord? He lets these Jews wander around 40 years in unbelief. They could have gone into the promised land immediately, but they did not. But all he was doing was helping them to recognize where the greatest oil find, most likely in the history of Israel's history, is going to take place. But it's going to be found all across the entire state of Israel, basically in the Negev in the south, but all across the entire state.